Well, when we sit down, it's time for the conversation, and we have done just that. Remember, Metropole Debrief is a dialogue. Everyone has a say. 20146 is our direct SMS line. Be a part of this conversation. Hashtag Metropole Debrief online, Metropole TV across all our social media handles. Now, my guests today, they're the gatekeepers of the media, and they sit through 6 hours, 8 hours of press conferences and footage and events, but they have to compress that to 3 minutes news items for you at home to see. What exactly have you been missing in the coronavirus conversation and the Locust invasion? They're here to bring you up to speed. My guests today, Ingrid Nantege and Kaut Bernard, and just to take you through some of their profiles. Now, Ingrid Nantege is our assignment editor here at Metropole TV, and she has a career of 8 years experience in the media industry. She is also a strategic communication expert, among other qualifications. Kaut Bernard is a camera person here at Metropole TV. He's a member of the Youth Senate and is currently a student at the United States International University, Africa, and he is studying international relations to graduate in 2021, among other qualifications. Well, thank you for making time, and it's such a pleasure to have both of you here so we can have this conversation.
It's always a pleasure to be here. I love this show.
Great. Now, let us just start by painting a visual picture. Imagine if today it was to break on the news, or we were to find out that the first coronavirus case has been confirmed in the country. What would be your first reaction, Ingrid?
I'd stop imagining. Just kidding. It's like, oh my God, may that never happen to us.
So let's just say you have options. For example, A, get a mask, or B, quarantine yourself. Which one would it be?
Quarantine myself.
Kaut?
I'll quarantine myself and take a mask. I'll do both of them.
So you do both, yeah?
Even if there's a third option, I'll do the third one.
Yes. So that just goes to show the gravity of this virus.
Yes.
Well, let's get to hear what Kenyans in the streets had to say, and then we can pick up our conversation.
I can tell you that I have a mask with me, so I am ready.
Target mask.
I'll use a mask.
So Kenyans are saying they're ready for this virus. However, do you think the way the government has been handling the coronavirus since its outbreak, it's treating this issue with the seriousness that it should, so that we are ready in case of an outbreak?
First of all, if Kenyans think they're ready because they have masks or because they're ready to quarantine themselves, I would like to let you know right now that they're not ready. And whether the government is dealing with the issue with the seriousness that it deserves, I would say no. At least not from the beginning. We've seen the government become reactionary upon pressure from the public and other legislators. Ondiro, even with everything that was happening globally, the world literally came to a standstill. Nothing was being talked about. The entire conversation over the past, how many, like close to 3 months now, has been about coronavirus. And here we are, as Kenya, acting like we don't even know what's going on, acting like we don't know that this conversation has been happening, as was evidenced over the past 2 weeks, when the government, in its wisdom or lack thereof, allowed an aircraft. That's when the ball was dropped. Ondiro, not much was being said. Maybe you can say maybe because we were not affected yet.
Yeah.
But the second we were exposed to that China Southern airplane that came carrying 239 passengers who were screened on board and eventually allowed into the country with advice to self-quarantine, that's when I knew for sure this is a joke to us. Why would that even happen?
Kaut, I'd like to hear your thoughts, particularly on the bit where do we have even the right capability to be able to be doing this screening and allowing people into the country with the notion of self-quarantine?
Thank you, Noreen. My take would be, first of all, the government or the country is ill-prepared for this disaster that is in the offing, because the way our manpower in relation to other illnesses that we witnessed in the past, we're a country that others are still dying because of preventable diseases. Corona is not a joke. It's not like an imaginary thing that you can imagine that won't come. And I dare say it's a global matter that has raised concern among global quarters. As a country, or as Kenyan, I feel the government is playing low, lying to the country on the level of preparedness about the coronavirus, because at the stake is the border security or our international inlet.
Yes.
Okay, you know, stringent measures must be put in place. And that is why you see we go wrong. I mean, if we really need to be where we want to be as a country in terms of preparedness, we really have to start from zero and do self-reassessment as a government, as a nation, and come to reality, like, you know, we really need to do our best. Yeah, we are not there, and we can only dream to be there.
And it's very... Go ahead.
I'm sorry for butting in. Just to support my brother Kaut on what he's saying in terms of preparedness, it's only tomorrow that Mbagathi isolation unit that the government has been talking about is going to be finally commissioned.
Okay.
How long has this been going on, right? Even the 239 passengers that were asked to be rounded up, we haven't really got a hold of them. Within this week, actually, early this week, that's when we had the government talking about procuring 2 million masks.
Yes.
Again, when did this outbreak start? And it's only now that we are reacting. And that's only because, again, pressure.
And Noreen, on the same note, all governments across the globe are putting stringent measures to ensure that the citizens are protected.
Yeah.
They are offering evacuation plans and doing all that. Why would a country allow a plane carrying all foreigners in the name of diplomatic agreement or something, and your students,
and leave its nationals,
and your the nationals, at the epicenter of the coronavirus? You tell us that they are well protected. You supply, the government the other day said there's 1.3 million given to 100 students. Really? On a foreign land, 1.3 million, you divide by 100, you get 13,000.
Yeah.
That is 13,000 Kenyan shillings. You've not changed it to dollars.
Yeah.
So how, really, let us do self-reassessment. Our priorities are misplaced as a country. Like on the commissioning of the Mbagathi.
Yeah.
How quick are we dealing with emergency? If we can't really move quick to commission.
We know how healthcare in the country is. We can barely deal with other complications. I know we have to move on.
And speaking of healthcare, I would like to bring in Dr. Jacqueline Mwanu, who's a public health consultant. She's been in this sector and she understands how it looks like. Listening to what she had to say.
I don't think we're prepared, because how many people can Kenyatta hold? These are the big facilities in the country.
Yeah.
How many people can MTRH hold? That is the Moi Teaching Referral in Eldoret. All the big general hospitals in the country, how many people can they hold? And other than just being, the facilities being able to hold people, has education to the public been given? And it doesn't mean, if you give people information in English, come on, most people will not understand. This needs to be delivered in local languages. So I don't think we are prepared, but I'm glad that they've tried to come up with some committees and emergency response team. And I'm really hoping that these committees and response teams don't, after this is all over, they're not disbanded, because who knows what else might come.
Picking up from where Dr. Mwanu has left it, committees that were formed, knee-jerk reactions, or can these committees be left in place because we do not know what tomorrow holds?
Knee-jerk reactions, but obviously it makes sense that they are left in place because, Ondiro, like I said, this coronavirus thing is in Kenya, it's not being treated with the seriousness that it deserves. And the doctor said something that's very, very important. I mean, it might sound like a joke, but it makes sense to give people information in vernacular. This is something that can affect everyone. And you know, if you even go to the grassroots level, like the villages, people don't understand. People interpret things in their own way, and as a result, that can, in a way, escalate a situation.
And the essence of a communication is to be simple, clear, so that the message reaches the targeted audience.
Great. Now, from all the reports that we've been seeing in the media, both global and local, and the way this disease has been spreading, very briefly, if you could paint a visual picture for the viewer at home, what do you make of the spread of the virus since its outbreak?
I mean, the way I see it, and that's why we're even seeing international media, health experts, the World Health Organization, questioning why there are very, very few recorded cases in Africa. So in terms of the spread we've seen, obviously we know it originated in China, but the countries that we're seeing have more incidents are countries that have closer ties, almost direct ties, whether through trade, whether through tourism, whether you get so.
But doesn't that put us at risk because we also have closer ties with the Chinese?
Of course, we're at risk. That does not mean it eliminates risk.
And if I could add what Ingrid is saying, basically, Kenya or Africa is just an offshoot economy of Europe. We are trading partners. So whatever happens in the Europe market, it spirals and affects the African economy. So basically, if you check at the global, the scope of the global market effect of Corona, the International Air Transport Association is issuing a notice of losses close to 113 billion US dollars. Most companies are asking their employees to go on unpaid leave. Yes, it could be happening in Italy or somewhere, but remember that firm that is asking the employer to go on an unpaid leave maybe has a sister company in Kenya.
Absolutely.
So that effect will melt down.
Eventually trickle down into the Kenyan
and that's
economy.
why I'm saying at the end of the day, Africa is the worst position.
Now, sticking with that position of the economic impact, I'd like to know, because we also went out in the streets and asked Kenyans, if coronavirus was to hit, and particularly most Kenyans source their goods from China, what would they do as business people? A, will they consider another business? Or B, will they continue with the business regardless? Let's hear what they had to say, and then we'll come and hear your reactions.
It's not only China that you can buy cheap products. There are other countries you can get equally and even better products at fair rates.
The virus affected the people, not the goods.
Continue the business depending on how the business is working.
Taendelea nayo.
It's not only China that you can buy cheap products. There are other countries you can get equally and even better products at fair rates.
The virus affected the people, not the goods.
Continue the business depending on how the business is working.
Taendelea nayo.
Very conflicting views here. Some are saying sitaendelea na hiyo biashara, and some says I can source for goods from other places. But do we understand that when Corona hits, it's hitting all markets?
Okay, basically, as a first disclaimer, I'll not advocate for cheap goods or products. Second of all, I believe in resilience, the ability to bounce back from a disruption and even make more effort to prepare for future disruptions, So all markets are affected, and that tells you the level of ignorance. The level of ignorance Kenyans have about this coronavirus.
Have they been given the information and they choose not to consume, or is it that they do not have the right information?
These people are evidence of the information gap that actually currently exists in this country. And judging from the lady who said, it was a gentleman who said, see, it's the people who get corona, not the goods.
That tells you of the level of ignorance among the general citizen. And the first weapon that is of mass destruction is lack of information. That is what can kill people, not knowing that you can turn this way and you die. That's the worst thing.
But also, maybe the reason why people think like this, Ondiro, we underestimate the power, the information that our leaders give us, the role that it plays in our lives and actually influencing the way we think and the decisions that we make. Because again, earlier this week, the incoming Cabinet Secretary for Industry and Trade said, actually, comforted traders and the business community and said, don't worry about it. I know there's a coronavirus outbreak in the country, but I guarantee it. You're fine. You won't be affected. How can you make such guarantees?
How do you make such a pregnant statement that without a full explanation, what measures have you put in place to ensure a citizen, our citizens are safe?
And before we wrap up this coronavirus, I want to bring legislators into this point, because some are misleading Kenyans, or some are speaking out of ignorance just to try and calm the situation down. But for the first time, we are seeing that legislators are on the same side with Kenyans, and they're scolding the government for allowing the 239 passengers in.
They are not on the same side. It's nature that has put them on the same side. It is good that should go on record.
Go ahead.
They've never been on the same side with the typical Kenyan, but it's now nature that has universally placed every human being on a neutral scale.
To mean
the health is coming, the health crisis about corona does not have a taste. If you're rich, my friend, it strikes you, you die. If you're poor, it strikes you, you die. So they feel more touched that, okay, so this thing is real. And that tells you or pictures an image of our poor or broken health system. Because that panic from the politicians, they had time to make their house in order. Look at Germany. They are now stopping export of medical gears. China is doing the same. So if you are going to import, first of all, who is going to give you that thing to import?
Ingrid, what lessons should we draw from this?
So I really want to say something about the legislators.
Okay. Spend your 30 seconds
I just
there.
want to say what Kaut said about the legislators not being on a common front is absolutely right. In short, what Kaut is saying is the reason they're fighting so hard for what to you may look like the common Kenyan is that for once, no one has anywhere to run. If they go to Wuhan, they're going to perish. If they go to Italy, like this is an epidemic that has taken the world by storm. So for once we have nowhere to run. So everyone is clutching at a straw. And you either fix things back home and we all survive, or we all perish.
And each country is dealing with its own mess. How you going to handle it is up to
And speaking of another pandemic that has hit, and it's also like a force of nature or a punishment from nature, is the invasion of locusts. Now, we've had so many stories here and there. We had one person say that we shouldn't worry, the locusts will grow old and they will die. Still, just like coronavirus, do we understand the underlying effect of this locust invasion, Ingrid?
So, Ondiro, again, this locust invasion is not something that just started yesterday. This is an invasion that has not only once again affected just one country.
Yes.
This locust invasion has gone around the region, several countries have been affected.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it's the worst one for Kenya in 70 years and the worst one for the region in 25 years. Is that something we need to be playing around with? In fact, Kenya experienced its second wave. That means they had one really bad one before. Last month, they had a second wave of locusts sweeping the country. We've had the government and everyone who's supposed to do something about it intensify efforts. As a matter of fact, one of the officials in charge of all somehow handling the whole locust invasion thing said the whole exercise is getting too expensive to the point that now they're even getting help from outside. Does that look like a situation where we should just sit back and let locusts grow old and die?
Okay. My take would be this. You check at the contribution of agriculture to the Kenyan economy.
That's simple, actually.
That one is direct. And then number two, you check at the migration pattern of the locust. It didn't come like in January. The government have the capacity of intelligence to know what is approaching even in 5 years' time. The migration started all the way from, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iran to Ethiopia and Somalia. My friend, these things were not migrating like in 1 week they came from Yemen to Kenya. There, you must have contingency plan. And that tells you how funny, or for lack of a better word, the government officials or the government itself is less concerned about them.
And Ondiro, let me tell you something, a statistics about locusts that people, or rather a fact about locusts that people might not know.
Okay.
See, we're talking about swarms. We're panicking about swarms that have swept the country. Do you know that one locust, and this is the most dangerous stage, one locust gives birth, or rather, produces 160 eggs.
Lays 160 eggs, one locust.
Yes.
What would be the
And
underlying?
almost
Very
all
fertile, very
eggs,
fertile.
according to science, hatch.
All eggs hatch?
Yes.
Imagine this, what they're talking about, the locusts have done to vegetation. Now one locust produces 160 eggs, we have a swarm.
Let's listen into what an entomologist had to say about the underlying effect of this invasion.
Are voracious feeders. A swarm of 40 million locusts can consume food that could be eaten by 35,000 people in a single day. Currently, over 12 million people are in need of humanitarian services in terms of food security. This locust invasion is bound to cause further deterioration of the food security situation and pose a greater threat to the lives of many. I mean, as long as you eat, you are affected.
One swarm eats food that could be eaten by 35,000 people. 12 million people are in dire need of humanitarian support. And even as is, even before, Kenya is always in dire need of food. We are not a food secure country. How do we get past this if we are to survive the next year or 2 years?
Past the locusts?
Yes.
Ondiro, we just need to stop saying they're going to grow old and die. I mean, who are we going to listen to? That person who says they're going to grow old and die, or someone who actually knows how these things work? And if they tell us those are the figures, and actually the food basket is at risk, really, we just need to tighten. We just need to get more serious about this before it gets out of control. We've seen other countries do it. We're not, like I said, we're not the only ones who are affected. We just need to be as serious about this as everybody else is.
Kaut?
Okay, you know what? A good part or a huge chunk of Kenyan soil is not arable. It's either arid or semi-arid. So if we can't really safeguard the little we have, and all we can do is to hard lip, honestly, you cannot delay an effect whose time has come. The same way, how to mitigate is what we need to do, is what the government needs to do actually. But again, the broader picture of locust migration, as scientists have argued, is climate change. It's the main thing forming defining global politics.
Yes.
Climate change is not a hoax, as I've always said. It's a threat to the future generations.
Great.
Yes.
Now, we have 30 seconds each before I let you go. At the end of every day, someone once said that Africa does not have any problems. All its problems arise from political decisions that are made. Let's talk about the role of political goodwill in ensuring that we have a positive turnaround to these pandemics that are threatening to hit us, Ingrid.
That's where it all begins. Because, Ondiro, that's where all the decisions are made. That's where all the solutions are. Literally, political goodwill is the beginning and the end of all our problems. That's it. Because that's, like I said, that's where, like, the brand ends there. Is that what the saying is? Yeah.
Kaut, your 30 seconds begin now. What should President Kenyatta do? What directives should he give?
I don't know. I really, before we go to the directives, we just need to cleanse our political system. We just really need to be sincere with ourselves. Politics is not dirty as people define it, right? So we really need to play clean politics that really impact positively on the life of the voter. That person, that woman, that mother, that daughter, that young man who doesn't know what is happening or what will happen in 3 months, act as an interlinked. Yes, that is what we need. Our political system must be cleansed.
Act like an intellect, but do we put intellectual people in offices? After the break, my mic is off and your voice comes on Social Watch.